Guys, it's Mike's Little Dragon Channel, and I just finished reading X-Manhunt Omega, and the 7 parts, and all in all, it touched across each one of the From the Ashes books, and the general gist of the storyline is Professor X has escaped from his jail where he's been put by the government, and the X-Men are out to recover him and bring him back. And I don't know if I should go into spoilers or not, but it feels like maybe enough time has gone past. But in any case, at the very end of it, Professor X and his wife, they leave planet Earth and they head into outer space to try and rescue their daughter that they have together, which is supposed to tie into the, as we'll see right here, we'll see them next in Imperial, the Jonathan Hickman book. But really what I want to say is I think this has been a long time coming in taking Professor X off the board. I feel like he's a character who there's no longer a reason for. When you have, just looking at the characters here on the cover, such long tenured members of the X-Men as Cyclops, Rogue, Storm, Gambit, Kitty Pryde. These characters, there's nothing that Charles Xavier can teach them anymore. They, Storm is a member of the Avengers now. Rogue's been a member of the Avengers. The character of Charles Xavier as, the guy who brings mutants in, teaches them to use their powers, and, runs a school. That is such a cliche here in 2025, and it's probably been a cliche for quite a while, and it doesn't, he Professor X, that is, I just don't think he works anymore as a a character in the X-Men books. Everyone can, like, Storm can fill Professor X's role. Cyclops can fill it. Rogue can fill it. Wolverine can fill it. So he basically kind of is, obsolete. I don't want to say obsolete, but he's basically redundant. When you have him, and then you also have Cyclops, Storm, Rogue, or any sort of combination of them with Professor X, what does Professor X add to the mix? There's nothing that he can do right now that can add to any story. Being the benevolent, plus the age of, this is our, the age of a Professor X style character. This is our millionaire backer who, secretly funds a school that we go to. That's such a old school comic book thing. And stories and everything have kind of really gotten past that. Professor X is the teacher of our school that we're all students at, and also secretly globe-trotting superheroes. So I believe that taking Professor X off the board and getting him out of the equation for the X books, it does the X franchise, it does them, a favor. And I think that just Hickman taking him into outer space, I think it serves Charles Xavier. I think it'll do a lot more for his character than it would do just keeping him as strictly a relative figure, or a figure who's in the X books. So all in all, to make a long story short, I think everything worked out for the best, and I think it's the best for the character of Charles Xavier, and I also think it's the best for all the X books involved. So I just gotta say, I think in summary, uh, I don't know if maybe 7 parts of the story was necessary. You know, especially to touch through each book, because it didn't really feel like it was a very tight crossover, in that where one issue dropped off, the next one picked up. But I really felt like you probably could have did this in 4 issues, and you could have probably done this in 4 issues and the one shot, and you could have left X Factor or Exceptional X-Men out of it. You definitely could have left Exceptional X-Men out of it, because they chose not to participate. And good for them, because that book is so great. It didn't need to be bogged down with a event tie-in. But in anyway, that's a different story altogether. But I'll just wrap this up by saying X-Manhunt Omega. The crossover in itself was so, but I really enjoyed the results. I enjoyed seeing Professor X take a next step in his character. So till next time, talk to you guys later. Bye bye.